Hi designers, I'm Anna Livermore, and today I'm taking over Makers Row. They've been doing all of these live events for designers looking for content, different information. It's been really amazing. So hopefully today isn't your first, but they're going to be doing plenty more. So stay connected. If you're not familiar with Makers Row is a platform for new designers or established designers that are looking for more people to put into their network. They've got vendors for factories and fabrics and trims and buttons and factories like V.Mora all listed on Makers Row. So if you're not on Makers Row platform, you should check it out for sure. And then they're launching Embark, which again, I'm sure you've heard about, but today's the launch date. We are generating a wait list, and it is a place where you can connect with all the experts that they've chosen to help guide you through the process of launching. So it's really amazing, and I'm Anna Livermore. I'm gonna actually pin this in so you guys have my information and the information about Embark. And I own a company. Now let me see, pin comment. There we go. So I own a company that helps launch fashion designers, and we will help with managing production. We do patterns and samples, branding, social media, photo shoots, anything that you're gonna need to launch your clothing line successfully. I also do one-on-one coaching, and if you're interested in that, I'm doing a promotion for a month of coaching at a discounted rate, so you can contact me through Makers Row to talk more about that. Anyways, today we are talking about the steps of production. So there's a lot of steps. I'm going to run through it quickly so that we have time, but you can see this for 24 hours. You can rewatch it as much as possible. So take notes, write them down, because if you follow these steps properly, you will you'll be more likely to have a perfect production. There's a lot of things on your end that you can do to help ensure the production is smooth and you don't skip any steps. So today we're talking about what the steps are. All right, so the first step is you want to create a mood board. And the mood board is important because as designers, you're going to have so many new ideas. You're going to be inspired all the time. And it's important that you stay on the direction, on your path. You can, if you have a bunch of ideas, you can set them aside for a mood board for next season. But this will also come into play when you go to get feedback from your friends and family and they give you all the ideas that they want and everything that they want in their clothing line. So a mood board just helps set the intention for the season of what the colors are going to be, who your customer is, and it helps keep you focused. It's a way to pull that creative brain into something more tangible and viewable, right? So the first thing after the mood board is you want to create a timeline. Be realistic with your timeline. You don't want to set yourself up for failure by planning an event too soon or a launch too fast. You have a lot to go through, and you want to give yourself the time to be able to launch with a product you're really happy with. And at V.Mora, we help with that timeline and help let you know how long things should take, things like that. I'm always trying to get above the questions but whatever. So yes, so sitting down with someone that can help you create a realistic timeline is number 2. The next is developing your sketches. So if you're gonna do 8 pieces, I would suggest sketching at least 16, and then you can eliminate to the 8 that you're most proud of or most excited about. I always say that it's better to do like a small, precise collection than a collection that has hats and shoes and pants and jackets and dresses and everything that someone's gonna need. You wanna find out what your niche is. Like if you're really excited about the jackets, maybe you're a jacket designer. So putting together all of these sketches and then deciding which of them you're gonna move forward with. After that, you wanna do create your style numbers. And even if you're doing your whole collection yourself, all your patterns and samples, this will help so that you're organized. So when you're working with a factory, you can name your dress the Allison dress or whatever that is, but when you're working with the manufacturer, they're going to want to know the style number. It helps organize. So make sure that you have style numbers. Next, you want to develop your size chart. There isn't a standard size chart. And we know that because you don't wear a size 6 in every single brand. Different brands fit differently, and that's up to you. You don't want someone to have the decision on that. You want to do some competitor research. What are your customers used to wearing? And developing a size chart that works for you and your brand. So size chart. After your size chart, you start sourcing your fabrics and your trims. So you can ask for swatches. Right now, there aren't any live trade shows, but they're having them on online, or you can contact vendors through Maker's Row and request swatches. But you'll want to start this early because the fabric sourcing can take longer than expected. So sourcing the fabric, you want to get started right away, and hopefully you're already doing that, or like I said, Maker's Row has a ton of fabric vendors that you can be reaching out to request swatches, and you can just keep them in your library so you have them for future collections if you're not going to use them for this specific collection. So and I have notes here, so I keep looking away. I should have these memorized by now, but it's just easier. After the fabric, you want to start your labels, your logos, and your hang tags. And this I put up top because your logo says so much about your brand, and so do your hang tags. So that's something that you want to be mindful for. You don't want to rush that. So being sure that you've set the time aside to build your brand and your logos and your labels, because every finishing touches matter in selling your clothing. So start with your labels, your logos, and your hang tags, and then you'll want to generate quotes for your patterns and samples and just do an overall budget. How much is this going to cost? How much should I prepare for? How many styles can I do? How much production? And you might say, I have no idea how to do that, but that's where companies like V.Mora come in, because we can help you create a budget from start to finish, everything that you're going to need. And that way you know going into it how much you can afford to do. You don't want to run out of money or funding. After you have put together your quotes for your patterns and samples, you'll go ahead and you'll start your first patterns. So first patterns, you create a prototype. That prototype won't always have all the details like the pocketing and the zippers and the buttons, because here we're just looking mainly for fit of the garment. And if that garment's going to change and then they have to change the pockets and the buttons, then it doesn't make much sense. You're adding additional work to the prototyping. So first patterns, prototypes, fittings. You want to hire a fit model. Make sure that the fit model is perfect for your size chart that you've created, because if not, all of your sizes are going to fit that way. If this model has a very, very tiny waist, all of your garments are going to be graded off of this one sample size, so all of your garments will have a tiny waist. Make sure that your fit model fits exactly into that middle size, because when you're doing your prototypes and sampling, you pick the middle size out of your size chart to do so. And I'll get to more on that why later. So hire your fit models. You'll, by then, if you're doing a muslin, a prototype out of muslin, you won't have to have your final fabrics for this point. But if you're doing any knits, you will have to have your final fabrics, because all knits stretch differently, they react differently, they hang differently, so you will have to have your fabrics selected for your prototypes. But if you're doing a woven or any sort of jacket that can be done out of a muslin, you won't. So after the prototype, at this point, that's your deadline for fabrics if you did a muslin. So you'll want to order your fabrics for your samples, and most vendors will give a small minimum. Definitely domestic vendors are accustomed to doing 5 or 10 yards, so you should be able to manage that fine. You'll get your fabrics, and then you do your pattern alterations from your fitting, and then you'll do another sample. And in general, It's good to, when you're doing your timeline, have 3 rounds of these fittings scheduled, and then if it only takes 2, great. But you'll want to do your first patterns, your prototype, alterations, a sample, alterations, and then a final sample. So that's what, 6 steps? I didn't count, but that's 6 steps right there that you'll want to have in your timeline. So be sure that you have that scheduled out so you don't get behind. After you have confirmed your final sample, at this point you'll want to wash test your garment. And when you also, another technique for testing fabrics, when you get the sample yardage, cut out some fabric, draw on this fabric in a 12 by 12 permanent marker square, wash it and dry it, take it out and remeasure it. See how much it shrank. If it shrank more than 4%, that's too much, and you'll either have to adjust your patterns or you'll have to pre-wash your fabric, but you'll have to work around that, because if someone buys your garment and it shrinks more than 4%, it's not going to fit anymore. So testing your garment once you have that sample, if you're going to be dry cleaning it, make sure that you dry clean that sample, wash it, dry it, hang dry it, whatever you're going to have on those care label instructions, make sure you check. But I'd also check, because even if you say hand wash, lay flat dry, people tend, I know I'm guilty of this, washing and drying that garment and hoping for the best. So you want to see what happens to the garment in all situations. So if you do get a bunch of returns and it's because it shrank too much, you can say, you know, we did experience this when it was washed and dried. Therefore, on our care labels, we put hand dry, cold water, lay flat. So testing your garment is really important so that you know what happens to your garment when it's laundered. So now that you've picked out your final fabrics, you can establish those care labels I just talked about. Care labels have content of what the fabric is, where the garment is made, and if it's from imported fabrics, say made in the US, from imported fabrics, and you have to have your care instructions, how do they wash it. So that's what you have to have on your care labels, and you'll want to do that before production. You want them to have everything ready, and you don't want to save anything to the last minute, because production doesn't start until they have all of these. So that's why I've spaced it out so that these are like more in the beginning of the steps, so that you are aware of what needs to happen there, and that you're not doing anything last minute and your factory is waiting for it. So care labels, and you have your final sample. At this point, this is when V.Mora finishes out. When we do the original sketches, we do them in an Illustrator. So we have the spec sheets is what we call them. And this is a lot of content, you guys. Bear with me. Like I said, I do a 20-minute strategy. You can contact me through Makers Row. So if any of this is overwhelming or you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Schedule some time with us. I'm going to take Q&A at the end as well. So spec sheets. Once we have the final sample done, we then complete out tech packs. Tech packs are the spec measurements, how the garment is finished, the different fabrics, the bill of materials, which is called the BOM, and any details in regards to where the labels get sewn, how to put on the hang tag if you've got packaging instructions. So you'll have your tech pack completed after your sample is completed. And now it's time to get those quotes for manufacturing. So I've talked about working with your manufacturers and tips for that. You'll want to generate quotes on how much it's going to cost for your cut and sew. And a lot of factories won't do that until they see a sample. Some factories won't do that until they've sewn a sample. So you want to be mindful of that. Generating your quotes for production. And then here you want to order your fabric for your size check run, or skewer, SCR for short. Size check run I'm going to get to, but it's one of every garment in your different sizes per style, and I'm going to talk about why that's important. But size check run, you take this original pattern in the medium size that you've created, whether that's your 6 or your 8 or your 18 months if you're doing children's, and you digitize that pattern and you grade that pattern and make those other sizes. So digitizing and grading comes next. And after your pattern has been graded and the markers have been created, you can now pull your yields. Yields are the exact amount of fabric you're going to need to create that garment. So maybe that's 1.3 yards or 0.83 yards. You'll get that number once the pattern is digitized and they've made that marker. And I'm gonna guess not everyone watching knows what a marker is, so I'm gonna get to that too. That's a really common question. So your markers, they digitize your patterns. Then that's just making it in a digital format. Then they use your size chart and they pull your size grade and they make all the other sizes from this original pattern. And then they make what's called a marker. And the marker is, think about like a Tetris game where it's all of your pattern pieces laid out as efficiently as possible on this one piece of paper so that you have the smallest amount of fabric waste possible, because you don't want to waste fabric, right? So that's what your marker is. It's a piece of paper that has all of your patterns laid out on it, drawn out as efficiently as possible as to not to waste the fabric. And it's a digital format, so it gets printed and gets sent to the factory who's going to do your size check run. And now the thing is, too, so it's a piece of paper, and they use a knife and they lay it on top of all your fabric, and they cut all your garments at one time with this marker. So for each production run, each size check run, you need a new marker printed, but not created, because it's already been created digital and you just do reprints. So like I said, ton of information today, bear with me. After you have created your markers, you now can do your costing, because you have the exact yields and you know how much of cost of goods are going into your product, and your factory has given you your quotes. So doing your costing at that point, and then you want to have your manufacturer do your size check run. And then you want to confirm that size check run. And the reason that we do that is before you do 50 size larges, you want to see one. And before you work with a factory, you want to see their quality and their sewing. So it's checking their quality, getting them accustomed to your product, as well as checking your pattern making and your grading and your sizing. So everything is just falling together so that you have a perfect production. So you want to do your size check run and make sure that your grading came out properly, because you know, human errors can happen, the wrong number can get punched in, and your large all of a sudden has, your sleeve is 12 inches too long just because it was like an extra number punched in there. So you just want to make sure that all of your sizing is correct and doing that size check run. Once your size check run is done, then you're ready for production, right? So if you take all of those steps, and I'm going to run through them really quickly again without explaining them, for those of you taking notes if you missed anything. But now you're ready for production, and you've taken all the steps that the production will be perfect. You've got your sample, you've got your tech pack, you've done your sizing, you've wash tested, everything is great, amazing. So you want to do your production run, order all of your production fabrics, your trims, your logos, everything that goes into your production, and get those ready to be delivered at your factory. Your factory will not start until they have all of your supplies. So create a list, I love lists, order all of your materials, and get them to your factory to start your production. You'll have to then print out those production markers because you used your size check run markers already. So print out your production markers, order all of your fabric, and then you're ready to start your production at the factory. And while your production is happening, you want to do check-ins, stop by if you can, but stay close to the factory while the production is happening. All right, so I'm going to take us back to the top because I'm sure some of you guys came in late. So you ready? From the top, mood board, timeline, sketches developed, sketches confirmed and decided upon, style numbers created, size chart determined, fabric swatch and trim sourcing, labels, logos, hang tags. Then your pattern and your prototype and your sample estimates. Then create your first pattern. Prototypes, do a fitting, alterations, do a fitting, final sample, confirm off on that. Once that is done, you'll do your wash test of your garment as well as the wash test for your fabric. Then you want to establish your care labels, and then you want to get your tech packs developed and confirmed. Then you want to get quotes from your manufacturer, Then you want to order fabric for your size check run. Then you want to digitize and grade your patterns. Next is yields. Next is markers for your size check run. Then you can complete your costing. Then you want to have your size check run done at the factory. Then you want to confirm off and do a little fitting with your production run, or I'm sorry, your size check run. Then you want to order all of your fabrics and trims for production, have your production marker printed, and then you do your production and manage it. So there you have it, all the steps to get you ready for production. If you have any questions, or if you want this list, I do have it as a checklist. I love checklists, templates, all of that stuff. So contact me through Makers Row. That is at makersrow.com/V-Mora. And I can send you this list. And now, Q&As. There's a lot of content. I'm sure you guys have some questions. So I'm going to scroll to see, do you leave materials, trims, fabrics, etc. sourcing to the factory? I think there's a typo in that one. Do you leave materials, trims, fabrics, etc. sourcing to the factory, or you that yourself? I think you do that. Okay, I see. Most to all factories domestically will require you to provide them with your materials. I don't know myself. I don't know any factories that are doing the sourcing as well. But that's why working with a company like mine, we can help you do all of that and get you ready for production in our product development package. So yes, factories don't do your sourcing. All right. What's the average cost for a complete production? This is the number one question I get all the time. Every single event I do, someone asks me, how much is this going to cost me? And I don't have a number for you because everyone's individual. You could be doing leather jackets, or you could be doing t-shirts. You could be doing 50 units, or you could be doing 1,000 units. So at V.Mora, like I said, I'm doing this one-on-one coaching promotion for the month of June 15th at a discounted rate. And within that, we can create your budget, right? So exactly what you're looking for and how much money you have, right? Because if you come to me and you say, I have $5,000, all right, we're gonna create a budget off of $5,000. If you say I have $150,000, we're gonna create a budget around that. So there's lots of ways that there's things you have to spend money on, and then there's things like PR companies or working with influencers that you can, you use what money you have and you get what you pay for. So unfortunately, it's a longer answer than just that question, but if you contact me through Makers Row, we can talk about that in more detail for you. But yeah, I get that question all the time, and I wish I had like the perfect answer. Oh, thank you, Carrie. That was really sweet of you. You are welcome. What's your favorite trade show to find material suppliers? So last week we did the all of the material suppliers you can find on Makers Row. So that's a great platform, especially now because trade shows aren't happening. Spending your time on Makers Row and sourcing through or looking through their sources and generating swatches is like the best way to be connected with vendors. What is a credible source to find fit models? So yeah, you'll want to work with a professional modeling agency. That's the best way. I've worked with unprofessional models, I guess you would say. I mean, a model that isn't represented by an agency. When you work with a model that's represented by an agency, this is the difference. You get a picture, it has their measurements on it. They show up, you measure them. If they don't exactly match those measurements, you send them home. That's a little bit extreme. I've learned to do this very mindfully because you know, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings and send anyone home as they don't match the measurements, but the facts are you need somebody that is perfect in your fit, your size chart. And fit modeling agencies know and understand that, because fit is so important. When you're working with people that don't work with a professional fit modeling agency, and they show up and maybe they've taken their measurements themselves, or their measurements aren't accurate, you'll always the first thing we do with any fitting is we measure that model. Even if it's the same model, because if it's been 6 weeks or 4 weeks since your last fitting, people can lose weight, they can gain weight, and you'll just want to make sure that they fit the exact measurements. And I believe Makers Row has fit modeling agencies on their platform, so you can probably find some through there. I don't know where you're located, but there's plenty of agencies that do that. How does the process change for on-demand production, or should it remain the same? So for on-demand production, it remains the same. The only difference is there is a more detail-oriented tech pack that you have to provide these on-demand factories, because everything is so specific in the way that they work out the process. You have to be very detailed. So you don't have to purchase a production up front, but you do have to do all of the development with a company like V.Mora that's accustomed to working with on-demand factories, so that we know what you need to prepare for. And then once you have this tech pack, then there will be a setup fee. Instead of paying for your production, say it's $5,000 to make 550 units or whatever, that's extreme, but you get what I'm saying. You don't have to pay that production, but you'll have to pay a setup fee to have this on-demand option. And that could probably be a whole other call on demand. Once we receive a pattern and sample, what should we check whether the pattern is accurate? So does it fit? If there's any sort of pulling on the garment, then you know that there's a problem, and usually that pulling points to the problem. So if I have pulling like right here, probably because my shoulder is too big for this shirt, but the pulling will give you an angle. Like if you're working with pants, it'll actually pull to the point that there needs to be an alteration. But you should have your pattern maker there for your fitting, because they're aware of this and know how to fix those things. I don't have any technical background, or just hope the pattern maker did everything correctly. So you want to work with an experienced pattern maker, and you will want to plan that there's going to be alterations. If there's alterations needed, it doesn't mean you have a bad pattern maker. 100% doesn't mean that. Prototypes are part of it. You do a prototype, you do alterations, and then you do final sample. So you'll want to work with an experienced pattern maker, because it is a very technical skill. Are you currently hiring for your team? My cousin works in PD. Contact me through Makers Row. We're always accepting applications and resumes. We're doing summer interns right now. All right. How do you balance between having large inventory and having more responsible inventory? So I'm an advocate for doing a smaller production with a smaller profit margin in the beginning, and then rolling out into a larger production run. So you can do these micro launches or a small pop-up, because that's going to be your best market research. So you can I was talking to someone today about like doing focus groups and and like all of this research, but until people are asked to spend their money, you don't really know. Because they could be attracted to a pattern or love a print, but when it comes to reality, they're not going to buy it because they want the black, because it's easier to wear. So I always say start with a smaller inventory and then work your way up into a larger production, because you learn so much. How do you set expectations to customers that you are a new brand? Yeah, just start your brand story. Tell them who you are, create great content, but being a new brand isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. You have new designs, you have a fresh view, you've spent all of this time in development. So just bringing and pulling your customer into your brand story. All right, so we are continuing to do these Maker Row lives throughout. So I'm going to ask you guys, what content do you want to hear? What would be a great talk? I know we went through a ton of steps today, but does anyone have any suggestions? Because I'm looking for suggestions. What do you guys want to hear about or learn about? Nobody? You guys heard everything you need to hear? That's great too. Well, if you think of anything and there's something that you want me to cover, contact me through Makers Row, because I'm planning out the events for June of what the topics are going to be, and I want to make sure that it's the most valuable to you guys, and everything is great. You guys are so sweet. Thank you. So, do you do production? We manage production. We have factories that do production. It just depends. We do patterns and samples, and then we partner you with the manufacturer that meets your minimums and your type of product specifically, and then help manage that relationship. More about on-demand production. Yeah, that's really, it's been everywhere lately. So, yeah, we could work something like that out. That's a good idea. I've gotten a lot of questions on on-demand. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad that you found it amazing and that it was super valuable. Yeah, these steps, it can seem overwhelming, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys with everything you're going to have to do, but at the same time, stay informative. Don't worry about it. You can ask for help. You can find the people. You do not have to do all of these steps by yourself. That's insanity. But hiring the right professionals to help you along the way. Would love the list. Yes, so contact me through makersrow.com/V.Mora, and I can get you that list. All right. Well, I'm really happy that you guys enjoyed today's live event. Like I said, Anna Livermore, V.Mora. Contact me through Makers Row, their Makers Row platform, makersrow.com/V-Mora. We're launching Embark, where you'll have access to all of these experts to help you have your patterns and your samples, and they're doing like accountants and lawyers and branding and like all of this stuff. So that's going to be a great place. Get on the wait list for that. And perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for sitting through that, and I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for tuning in. All right, we will see you next time. Oh, and if you have any topics you want to hear, please contact me, because like I said, planning new events and new content for June. All right, have a good rest of your day, everyone.